Good morning, traders. This is Dennis Dick at Premarket Info. We have earnings, and more earnings today, as we've got Johnson & Johnson, Goldman Sachs, Coca-Cola, State Street, Mosaic, Mattel, Comerica, all kinds of earnings reports here to talk about this morning. Yahoo gets a new CEO. They will also report tonight. We have analyst upgrades to Disney. We've got downgrades to Target, Lowe's, Home Depot, and Deere. And then we'll look ahead to Intel's earnings tonight. Wanted to talk about Johnson & Johnson though. First I'm just going to show you a few of the levels here that Johnson & Johnson that we did last night. Johnson & Johnson has bottomed out multiple times here in this whole 66.95 to 67 area. It is trading down after its report here today. But I'm just going to show you here these numbers. It got down to 66.41 in the pre-market, taking out this big low, but I think these numbers could come into play here today. Obviously settled at 68.45, is trading at 67.59 right now in the pre-market after the report. Spiked up as high as 69.50. That was before the report, but as soon as they reported, Johnson & Johnson went down. They beat by a cent, but their guidance, their full year guidance, they lowered it just slightly to $5 to $5.07 from $5.14. So it's the guidance that is getting Johnson & Johnson here today. But keep an eye on these numbers. Obviously the pre-market low 66.41, I don't think that's going to come into play, but would not surprise me if it went down here and tried this whole 67 area again, which is where the stock has had multiple highs here in the past. This was an old resistance level, could come into play as support. Major resistance would be up in the 68.75 area. There's been some institutional resistance up here, and 68.69. Let's take a look at the chart though. So we've got Johnson & Johnson here. I'm going to show you the 2-day chart here just to show you what I was talking about. Up here in this whole 68.75 area, there's been an institutional seller, and the high frequency guys, they always love to sit in front of those institutional sellers, and they've been sitting up there, perched up there at this whole 68.65 to 68.75 area for the last 2 days. Now we're $1 away from there, but always after these reports, there can be volatility. So if for whatever reason Johnson & Johnson starts to go into rally mode, we're going to open down here on the chart around the 67.50 area. If it starts to go into rally mode, you know when you get above 68.50, 68.60, it's going to thicken up there. Below that, you're going to have a lot of air probably all the way up to this area and down to that 67 area that I just talked about. So keep that in mind if you're trading Johnson & Johnson today. It's trading last here at 67.55 on 263,000 shares. Goldman Sachs also reported here this morning, and the stock is getting a lift in the pre-market off of that report. We've got Goldman Sachs trading up at $100.25 right now after closing at $97.68. Taking it out to the dailies, this $100 level has been a huge psychological resistance area. We got to $99.95 back on May 22nd. This is the first time we've been up here since then. So if we can indeed open over $100, you do have a little bit of air up to these couple of spikes at 102.14 and 103.79. So I don't think we're going to see that high today. There's another spike in there at 101.77. But if we can get above 100, the stock could start to march as it does open up. Below 100, if it opens below 100, that 100 will still remain psychological resistance. Coca-Cola also reported here today. We've got Coke trading up significantly here in the pre-market. 77.43 is where it's trading right now. Actually last is 77.28 now. Closed at 76.48, so it is getting a lift. They beat by 3 cents, $1.22 versus $1.19. Taking it out to the charts though, you've got this whole $78 area, which has given it a little bit of resistance here in the past. Back on July the 11th, 77.95 we topped out at. You've also had a couple of spikes, 77.59, and yesterday's high, 77.40. So interesting that it's starting to run into a little bit of trouble in that area. So keep an eye on that. But I'll bring up the 3-day chart. As you can see, we've come up here to this whole 77.55, 77.45 area a couple of times, and we're trading just below that right now. So that could give you some early resistance. If it does indeed continue to march, I'd expect some psychological resistance up there in that $78 area. Another one reporting who's really getting a spike is Mattel. Mattel is up over $2 here in the pre-market at $33. Interesting on the chart. What number jumps out at me? $33. We topped out $32.95 on July the 2nd. We topped out $32.95 on July the 5th, and we topped out $32.89 on July the 6th. Now we're trading up right at 33. We traded a little bit above there just a few minutes ago up to 33.08, but this whole 33 area looks pretty big to me. It is bid there right now in the pre-market, but it wouldn't surprise me if that just put if the stock at least paused at that 33 or opened there and paused. If it does continue to run through there, then you would start talking about this whole 34 area where we had multiple highs back in early May. We had a high of 34, just going to grab it there for you, 34.07 on May the 1st, 33.95 on May the 2nd, and 33.89 on May the 3rd. So I would say if the 33 holds, you may try that area. Starts to take that out, it could run, so be careful until we get up to that 34 area. Another one reporting here this morning, MOS, Mosaic is reporting. Stock is trading up significantly as well, $57 after closing at $55.37. Got to go out here. I don't see a heck of a lot in this area, so you want to be careful. We're above that spike at 56.60 there from July the 5th. If we do indeed open above there, you can go back into late March here. There's lots of highs up and lots of resistance up in the whole $60 area. But that's 3 points away from here. So really I see quite a bit of air in here and not a lot of reference points. So if you are trading that, I'd expect you to find some support back here in this 56 area, but not a heck of a lot of resistance. Now I don't think it's got the gas to run $3 today, but just saying there's not a lot of reference points, so it's hard to really find a good entry point here if you're trying to play this from the short side. So I'd be somewhat cautious if I'm playing this from the short side. I might be a buyer of pullbacks if it gets back into this 56 area or even sniffs into the 55s. STT, which is State Street, also reported here today. Stock is trading just flat on 500 shares. Only 44.20 is where it's only traded 500 shares here, so it's really hard to get a feel when a stock's only traded one trade. It's got a really wide spread, 41 to 44.50 here, so really difficult to tell where this one exactly is going to trade at today. Comerica, though. Comerica is trading up significantly. We talked about this one on the show yesterday, saying this whole double bottom or quadruple bottom thing in the 30 area. Well, that's not even going to come into play, it doesn't look like today, because the stock is taking off in the pre-market, trading at $32 right now. So it's doing significant volume up here too, over 240,000 shares. So this 32 area looks like it's going to be a big number for the stock just because it's traded so much size here right at $32. If it starts to pull back, I'd expect some major major support down here in the whole 31 area, but 32, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere here. You got one high there, 32.01 on May the 10th. So if it opens above there, if it opens below there, maybe 32 can put a lid on it temporarily. But if it starts to get above that 32 area, this thing could run. You have some multiple highs from mid-April, around 32.88, 32.65, 32.59. So this upper 32s, you'll see some resistance, but right around 32, there's not a heck of a lot. So you want to be careful if you're trading this. If it opens below there, maybe that can be an entry point for a short. If it opens above there, I'd be a little bit cautious on it. So as you can see, we've had lots of earnings here this morning, but other news as well. We've got Yahoo getting a new CEO here this morning. Marissa Mayer from Google going to take over the lead at Yahoo. The stock actually spiked significantly on that news last night. Got up into the mid-16s. Interesting enough, the 1635 high on June the 26th. It was trading above there though. So obviously I would keep an eye if it starts to get above 16. Keep an eye on that high at 1635 from June 26th. But this whole 16 area has been resistance for pretty much the entire month of July. 1599 topped out on July the 3rd. 1599 topped out on July the 1591 on July the 6th. 1598 on July the 10th. You can call 16 major resistance. Even going back into May, you had a high right on the button at 16. So somebody is dumping a lot of stock at 16. It did get above there last night, so you want to be cautious and you want to take that into consideration here. Trading right below there right now at 1596. But if it does indeed take out that 16, it could probably run pretty quickly to that 1635 high on June the 26th. If it does open below that 16, then that remains resistance. But just be careful, it starts to take the 16 out, the stock does open up. Disney getting an upgrade here this morning from Bank America. Stock is trading up about 50 cents right now, 48.35 after closing at 47.86. Looking out to some of these old highs, you had a high of 48.95 back on June the 29th. So if we're to rally another 50 cents from here, I think you'll find some significant resistance, probably up at that 49 whole number. We always talk about whole numbers on the show because institutions and retailer traders often just throw up large size orders, or mostly institutions, large sized orders at the whole numbers. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's another institution sitting there perched at $49. Just because when you see a high of 48.95, it's probably those high frequency guys that are sitting in front of that seller at 48.95. So wouldn't surprise me if this stock starts to run, if it tries to top out in the 48.90s, as those high frequency guys probably sit in front of that $49 whole number. Target getting a downgrade here at Citigroup. Is trading down just slightly, $60.80 right now after closing at 61.5. This stock has been on a heck of a run, so it's interesting. The stock kind of looks like it's been breaking out on the chart, so it's interesting that Citigroup downgrades it at this time. Last time we seen something like this, I can't remember the stock, but what happens sometimes is when you're getting a stock that's breaking out, and then you have an analyst downgrade, sometimes it gives you a decent entry point, a decent opportunity. And if this stock was to pull back into this whole $60 area, I think it might find some buyers down there because the stock was breaking out, probably caught a few people shorting here off this big hole number, spiked quickly there a couple days ago. So peeling back here, even trading $60.80, this thing gets into the low 60s. I think it will find buyers, and it might not be a bad entry point to use that analyst upgrade or downgrade as a potential opportunity to maybe purchase this stock. The stock looks really good on the charts. I mean, we've been going out here a couple of years here. I'll even take you out to the monthlies. Really, since we've been back at this level, we got to go back to 2008. So the stock is breaking out to 4-year highs. I wouldn't be downgrading it at this point in time, but Citigroup is. So maybe that gives you an opportunity to find a good entry point into Target. Lowe's and Home Depot both getting downgraded at Janney Capital this morning. Now this downgrade I like a little bit more. Lowe's chart is ugly. We had this vicious sell-off in May. We've bounced in June. Kind of hung out in July, but towards the end, or now towards the last couple of weeks, we've started to sell off again. This is the way I think you should do it if you're an analyst. When the stock's starting to get weak and breaking down, that's when you downgrade. The chart looks ugly on this as opposed to the target where the chart looked nice. This chart's starting to round. It looks ugly. Stock is continuing to break down, obviously, on the downgrade here this morning. 25.65 is where it's trading at right now after closing at 25.80. I could draw you this little trend line here, this channel. I think it gets towards the upper end of this channel. Might be a good opportunity to try a short. The upper end of that channel is up at 26.5. That's a ways up from here, and I don't think you're going to see that today. But keep that in mind for you swing traders up there. Keep that, draw that channel even on your own charts, and if it starts to get to, or that line on your own charts, and if it starts to get up to that resistance point, that trend line there, maybe you try a short. 25.65 is where it's trading at though this morning. Home Depot getting downgraded as well, and this one looks like it's consolidated so much up here. Kind of the opposite chart a little bit to Lowe's, where Lowe's had been breaking down. Home Depot really hasn't been breaking down. Has had a decent May, continued to have a decent June, consolidated in July, but it's looking like it's looking toppy up here in this whole 52 area. And I don't mind this downgrade either. If this stock starts to take out where you can see these multiple lows, you had a low of 50.89, 50.87, 50.86. There is huge support here at 50.85, but I think this is one of those plays where the support might actually get taken out and the stock could really wash out in a hurry. And we had this huge move up here if we look back to June the 6th where the stock really spiked up. what we say is when the stock spikes up quickly, it can spike down quickly too once it starts to get into this area. There's not a lot of reference points in this area, so the stock could break down relatively quickly. If we get through that 50.85 support area, it might bounce off there off the hop considering we closed at 51.45. Stock is trading 51.15 off this downgrade, but if it starts to break down through that area, I think it could be a good opportunity to try a short. That's just my opinion, obviously. It might bounce there off the hop, but keep an eye on that area. That's going to be a critical area to watch in the coming days for Home Depot. One more to highlight here, Deere getting a downgrade at JP Morgan. Stock is trading down significantly in the pre-market. It's down over a buck. Closed at 76.78, is trading 75.72 right now. So the stock is breaking down. Bounced yesterday down here off this whole 75.33 area. So if it gets down there, maybe it finds a little bit of support there, but the stock has been weak here in the pre-market. It's traded down to $75. So I'd keep an eye on the $75 area. It starts to break through there. I probably wouldn't want to own it. Maybe it bounces a little bit off the hop of the 75, but this is another one where the chart kind of looks broken, so I'm a little bit skeptical. If I just drew the trend line here, as you can see, you had a nice trend line, the stock trending up. It's kind of violated that now. Maybe that's why JP Morgan downgraded as well. It is a technical violation here. So I would be more of a seller of rallies as opposed to a buyer of dips on this one. Stock that's going to report tonight is Intel. We talked about it a bit on the show yesterday. Had a really quiet day for Intel yesterday, trading in only a 31-cent range, as low as 25, as high as 25.31. Trading 25.25 right now. Maybe it'll be quiet again ahead of its earnings report tonight. Obviously, after the earnings report tonight, we'll be interested to see where it goes. You had the low for you guys that plan on playing it off that earnings report. You always have to be careful when you do that. But you do have a 24.68 low on July the 12th, 24.76 low on July the 13th. So there's a little area for a potential double bottom down here. Maybe if the stock actually has a decent report, maybe it gets a lift. I would say you probably have a lot of air probably up to this 26 area if you're planning on playing Intel tonight. S&P futures here are trending a bit higher here in the pre-market. We're trading up $5.75, still holding into this channel that we drew yesterday. After closing out down there at 1347.50 yesterday. So we're up 6 points here. Channel still intact. I don't see a lot of resistance up until this whole 1364 area, which is where we got to on July the 6th. On a pullback, we've been seeing great support down between 1341 and 1343. We even bottomed yesterday at 1343. So that's where we've seen some really nice support on the S&P futures, is down in this whole 1341 to 1343 area. So if you're trading the S&P, keep that in mind. That's our show for today, folks. Once again, I'm Dennis Dick for premarketinfo.com.